we've talked a lot about reform on this channel, a lot. And yes, it is right that we do go for a reform in the way that we vote for our MPs to sort of fill the House of Commons. But this is the big but. The other thing that we have to sort of pay attention to is the House of Lords. Now, I've said I think the perfect plan to replace the House of Lords with, I don't know, a house of like regional representatives where you split everything up into regions and every region sort of has the same, let's say they've got 5 members each, and then obviously that's done by, single transferable vote, so again, depending on the region, you might get I don't know, you might get 2 Conservatives, 1 Lib Dem, 1 Labour, and 1 Green, maybe something like that. Again, it can depend on the region. But then again, depending on the region, you might end up with 3 Labour, maybe 1 Conservative, 1 Lib Dem. You don't know. Like I say, it's not a fully fleshed out idea. I will grant you that. But again, it's something that we could replace the House of Lords with, and I think just as replacing our voting system with first past the post to a PR version would be far beneficial to the UK and would change fundamentally UK politics. I think changing the House of Lords would also fundamentally change UK politics, because if you look at the numbers for areas of reform, the House of Lords tops the bill. And it is not hard to show people story after story after story of corruption, sleaze, the fact that most lords who get appointed don't even turn up to vote, the fact that there is more bureaucracy focused in the House of Lords than in that of China. So, yeah, it gets crazy, and I think reforming the House of Lords should be very much at the top of the agenda of certainly any opposition party going into the next general election. So today we're going to go get into this piece. Again, it's about reforming the House of Lords. So let's dive on straight into this. But before we do that, as always, please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help support the channel that way. So over we go to this piece from The Guardian with the title of Keir Starmer urged not to abandon pledge to abolish House of Lords. And I think is entirely right to not abandon that pledge. I think that is definitely one that needs to be handled with some serious urgency. So Keir Starmer has been urged not to abandon a key leadership pledge to abolish the House of Lords, with Gordon Brown's warning that plans to, quote, gerrymander Parliament, the upper chamber, by flooding it with dozens of Tory peers will provide the need for drastic reform. The alarm was raised by the former Labour Prime Minister over a proposal drawn up by a political lobbying group for Boris Johnson to appoint over 50 new Conservatives to ram contentious legislation through, given a series of embarrassing defeats by peers. Brown said the leaked document he had seen from the CT group, run by Linton Crosby, a key advisor to Johnson, to, quote, legitimizes the straightforward bribery by recommending those who vote loyalty be rewarded with special envoy positions, honours, and lunches at Chequers. Nicknamed Operation Homer, the plan also said that new peers would have to give a written undertaking to support the government in key votes on controversial legislation, likely to include the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill that would unilaterally override the Brexit deal. Under the cover of levelling up, the Lords certainly picked on former peers on the underrepresented parts of the UK. The paper admitted that it was, quote, the perfect excuse to ensure that swathes of loyalist lawmakers were ennobled. Writing in The Guardian, Brown said that the proposals makes no bones about the defenestrated Prime Minister's aim to pack the House of Lords. That would see him ride roughshod over every convention and stand in propriety in an effort to try and secure political nominees who will vote for the Tory government. He added that the paper's claim the media could easily be blindsided by the appointment of controversial figures or even celebrities to avoid criticism of the sheer number of cronies appointed would amount to gerrymandering. The solution is to reform the Lords, not reinforce the underrepresentativeness, Brown said, calling for Starmer to pick up the mantle of trying to abolish the unelected upper chamber in Parliament. Although Starmer made it one of his Big Ten pledges during the 2020 leadership campaign, it is one of the several he is accused of backtracking on. Asked about his commitment to abolish the House of Lords and replace it with an elected chamber of regions and nations last November, Starmer did not repeat it, but committed to change instead. And I think that is what he needs to commit to. That would be a drastic change that we need. You cannot just change the House of Lords. It needs to be changed fundamentally from the ground up. You cannot just alter it around the edges. You need to fundamentally change it. Brown said that the current appointment systems calls into question the unfettered patronage of the Prime Minister, who alone can recommend appointments to the Queen. Both he and Tony Blair declined a resignation honours list, which Brown said had undermined the reputation of a number of past Prime Ministers. Johnson's latest attempt to manipulate the Lord system is the culmination of years of constitutional vandalism, Brown has claimed, pointing out that the shameless appointment of Conservative Party donors and 8 former party treasurers. Although defeated back in 2008 when he tried to press ahead with Lord's reform, Brown said it was time to flush out who really wants change and who does not. The abolition of the House of Lords was one of the 10 commitments Keir Starmer made when assuming the Labour Party leadership, he wrote. Now Boris Johnson and Lyndon Crosby have handed him the strongest possible case of long overdue reform. And he's right, he has, massively. Starmer has since faced similar pressure from Anna Savard, the Scottish Labour leader, who said that the Lords in its current form has no place in 20th century politics. And she's absolutely right. It has absolutely no place. We need to just get rid of it completely and start over again with it. A Labour spokesperson said that the Leighton Crosby plan to pack the House of Lords shows the fundamental reform is needed. Keir Starmer has asked Gordon Brown to lead a review of the new UK's constitution. It will report later this year and set out the options for change, which, again, good. So it's not abandoned. But again, the fact that Gordon Brown is leading this with this type of change he's talked about, which, again, will probably be there. So, again, we'll have to see when that reports later this year. The CT Group spokesman said the document that you refer to was simply an early working copy of a discussion paper prepared for a think tank. It was not circulated outside a small group of individuals and was not prepared for any audience beyond that small group of people to aid discussion. Even in spite of this being simply a draft working of discussion paper, it seems incredulous that you would be against making the House of Lords more representative of the UK people with the unrepresentation of the North and Wales, as you state, or those who accept peerages do so in the full knowledge and acceptance that they will fully commit to activity to their democratic role and have no conflicts which will prevent them from doing so. Again, wow. Oh, you caught us out, guys. But yeah, we're committing fully to what we said in there. Yeah, it was only meant for a small number of people, but, we're going to commit to it. Yeah, again, it shows the seriousness of how much we need to reform the House of Lords. I think this is one of the things that the PR campaign really needs to pick up on. So a government spokesperson said, given the retirements and other departures, some new members are essential to keep their expertise and outlook in the Lords fresh. We'll ensure that Lords continue to fulfil its role in scrutinising and revising legislation, whilst respecting the primacy of the Commons and the association conventions between the two houses. It has also been the case under successive governments from across the political spectrum. The Prime Minister can draw upon, quote, a dissolution or registration list. So, yeah, I definitely think this something needs to be addressed. I keep on saying it, while changing the voting system for, the House of Commons, yeah, great, agree with it 100%. You've got the House of Lords, so many more things, which, just that letter alone, the fact that you've got the group there going, yeah, that got released, yeah, it looks bad, but yeah, we're going to go for it. you know, and again, this is what is going to end up being bad about it. I fully think that they're going to do it. They're going to pack the House of Lords. They're probably going to make some celebrity picks and something like that. But we'll say, oh, look at this lord, but don't pay attention to all those others. Just pay attention to this one. Yeah, of course, this is going to be very, very bad. It needs to be changed to a house of sort of regional representatives. I really think it does. I think that's the best way to go forward about it. Again, get it selected, get it elected under PR. Even if you can't get through the change to the voting system of the House of Commons, even if you can change this will fundamentally change British politics. It will bring a massive change to British politics. So I do certainly hope this is one thing that does get kept. And I think certainly Starmer should be put under a lot of pressure to get rid of this, because as Gordon Brown pointed out, he's been handed a massive win by Boris Johnson and that leaking of that letter to essentially, push ahead with the changes and to offer it the next general election. I think Labour should seriously consider at the next general election just saying, we are just going to run a full manifesto on reforming the British political system. I don't think it will fully happen, of course, but I think it will be a good idea. I really do think so. I think if people are desperate for change, as Brexit showed, people voted for Brexit for a myriad of different issues, most of them not involving the EU of what they were actually responsible for. But people want change, so okay, let's give them drastic change. Let's do it. Let's go for it. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button on your way out. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a motivation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.